What are no-no foods? In the world of RBTI, the popular term no-no foods refers to foodstuffs that cause trouble for the body. You must remember that the RBTI is an energy system. Any food that causes energy loss in a single person is considered an allergy problem for that person. As that person's energy levels change, foods that once caused him an allergic reaction will no longer do so. Some foods are undesirable for technical reasons. Black pepper, no matter how finely ground, acts almost like glass shards and is irritating to the bowel. Chocolate plugs kidney tubules and hampers proper fluid elimination. Oriental teas also cause kidney trouble. Additionally, there are some foods that cause energy loss to anyone who consumes them. These are the famous or infamous "don't eat these foods," so meticulously mentioned in the dietary laws of the Old Testament and mirrored in the halal rules given to Muslims. In the wonderful world of RBTI, these are called no-no foods. Although most RBTI consultants and teachers are aware of the deleterious nature of no-no foods and strongly discourage them, one teacher in particular, Challen Wyckoff, says loudly and clearly that he was instructed by Dr. Reams that the energy level of almost everyone suffers when they consume any of the no-no foods. A primary focus in Wyckoff's classes is the need to help clients move away from eating such foods. Before we go any further, it may be helpful to listen to a 6-minute segment of an interview that Dr. Reams gave to Salem Curbin in 1976. Curbin later transcribed the entire 4-hour interview and published the transcription as a short book, Health Guide to Survival. Reams' story tells how one of his agricultural clients came to him and said that he was sick and that his doctors had given him less than a year to live. It is probable that he was aware that Reams worked closely, but quietly, with doctors at Orlando's 3 largest hospitals and hoped that Reams could get him some special medical care. Instead, Reams merely handed the man a gram weighing scale and told him to report to Reams' lab each day at 2 p.m. with a list of how much of each food item he had eaten the day before. There were absolutely no restrictions placed on the man's food choices. The purpose was so that Reams could test his urine and saliva to see how the man's day-to-day ordinary diet affected them. This was some years after Reams had devised his perfect health equation, and he was quite proficient in how to compute reserve energy. As the days went by, Reams found that the man's energy levels dropped each time he ate the foods commonly known as unclean in the Bible. But let us hear Reams saying this in his own words.
I know in the Bible there's some things about not eating pork in the Old Testament. Did any of that have any bearing on your guidance as far as diet?
Yes, it did. A tremendous bearing, because I read in the Bible where it said that man should not eat pork in the 11th chapter of Leviticus. It was unclean, as well as many other meats named there. Well, I read in this manner, that in the day in which this was written, the hog was a scavenger, but he was around leprosy colonies and one thing and another. He was very unclean. But today, we've fed the hog all grains. He was a vegetarian. We kept him up on the floor, and he was in hog parlors, and he must be clean. But anyway, God still said he was unclean, and I did 7 years of research before I found the answer, and it was not any of my research that I did had nothing to do with finding the answer, absolutely none, because I found out that the calories in beef, pork, fish, or anything else per pound, or gram at least, of lean meat was almost the same, very little difference. And the way I come upon it was that I had a client that was told by his doctor he had less than a year to live. And I serviced his orange grove and cattle farms. And he came to me and he said, told me what happened. He said, "You've got to help me." He said, "Medicine has failed." So I gave him a gram scale, loaned him a gram scale out of my lab. And I said to him, "I don't care what you eat. I want to know how many grams you eat every day. I want you to come in for a saliva and urine test every day at 2 o'clock.
Could he eat, was there any limit to the number of grams he could eat?
There was no limit. He could eat anything he wanted. The only thing I wanted to know was what he ate. And then I was going to test the next day for it. And every day that he ate the unclean meats, down went the energy level. And every day that he didn't, the energy level began to climb. So then I took him off of certain things. I kept eliminating one by one by one. And I guess the man's still living today.
And what you're saying then is the unclean meats such as hogs, and of course the Bible speaks about, I think, shellfish such as shrimp, lobsters, catfish, they have very low energy levels. They produce very low energy levels in the human being. Is that what you're telling me?
No, I'm not telling you that. They produce very high energy levels very quickly.
Oh, very quickly?
Very quickly.
I
When you figure energy, you've got to have a time limit on it. In other words, the unclean meats digest in a period of about 3 hours, and the clean meats require about 18 hours.
Well, what about honey? Isn't that already pre-digested? Or is that a different subject entirely?
It's a different subject altogether.
All right, well, let's get back to these unclean meats. Is this bad for it to digest quickly? And
yes.
Why?
Yes, it is bad because it's like putting high-test gasoline in a motor that's not built for it.
And so our human bodies are not built for quick bursts of energy or quick use of energy? Or
not with the way we live today, no. Because some of our ancestors, they did, but they worked hard. They worked 16, 18 hours a day. They could burn it up. But today, with our life, air-conditioned homes, air-conditioned automobiles, and we don't use our muscle like they did, and we cannot burn it up.
What about someone who's digging ditches, or is a farmer who's toiling heavily every day, or a truck driver who's loading and unloading? Could he eat hog meat and get away with it?
I do not know. Some of them do, and some of them don't. I do not know. But I find people come in here who do hard work, like Amish farmers, Mennonite farmers, who do hard work, and they, between 35 and 45, they look like they're 70 or 80 years old, sick, yet to where they can't work. We take them off of the unclean meats, teach them how to eat, and in 6 months they even look younger than their years.
Now, just for the record, what do you count as unclean meats? We know hogs. What else would you?
Rabbit, catfish, shellfish, muskrat, rattlesnake, some of the Indians eat, guinea pigs, the Mexicans eat.
Shellfish would include what, shrimp and lobster?
Shrimp, lobster, clams, crab, and scallops.
How about oysters?
Oysters too, yes.
Right. All right.
I do not necessarily think that the unclean meats will probably not keep you out of heaven, but it will probably get you where you're going a lot faster and make the journey much more unpleasant and expensive.
How wonderful that this man, given less than a year to live, was still with us all those years later. How wonderful that a few rules written many thousands of years earlier prove so valid in modern times. And how wonderful that we are able to share in that knowledge. Although some of the earlier mentioned Wyckoff's clients and students probably scoff at his passion to avoid the no-no foods when they first meet him, most become quite impressed as they hear him present case after case where a client's numbers move closer to the perfect health equation in direct ratio to their abandonment of the no-no foods. You as a client will make up your own mind as to how much or how little of the RBTI program you wish to follow. You may decide that lemon water is too much trouble. You may feel that proper water drinking will interfere with your life by causing you to go to the bathroom at inconvenient times. You may recoil from the need to devote part of your budget to supplements. You may abhor the idea of walking, singing, or openly practicing more forgiveness. And you may completely rebel, even revolt, at the thought of never again eating that bacon, ham, pork, lobster, oysters, catfish, fillets, and other unclean foods that you so love, and yet that are so clearly proscribed in Leviticus 11. Dr. Reams went on to help tens of thousands who came to him after medicine had given up. He never wavered that a key part of the path to perfect health was to abandon no-no foods. His most famous saying, "Go by the numbers never lie," is as valid today as the first day he said it. You as a client are welcome to review your test analysis numbers with your consultant. You as a rational being will be able to see whether that little bit of bacon pushed those numbers further from perfect. It's your life and your decision.